This is the Team Objection podcast for June 25th, 2020, episode 443, and we already have something in the planner ready to go as a topic.
Here's what it is. I'm drinking Tower beer. I think
that?
it's a Flag local thing, so if you're not from Flagstaff, fuck you. And I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was really interesting. So it gives the pairings for the beer, which I think is interesting. So this beer, it's an IPA, so it's like kind of intense. I don't usually like IPAs, but I like this one. It says like best enjoyed at this temperature in this type of glass. It says pairs with fajitas. Okay. Green curry, which is fine. And then carrot cake. Who pairs beer with cake of any kind?
It's the spiciness in the carrot cake. It's the spices that go in there. It
No.
probably pairs really well with some of it.
I'm just sure. In theory, that's fine. Who pairs beer and cake?
It's
That's disgusting. No one. No one pairs beer with cake.
You know, despite your terrible things that are written on your can, it's still better than the cup that I have. The Suns cup that has Devin Booker, which is nice.
Okay.
Josh Jackson, not as nice, and Dragon Bender, not as nice.
That's an odd. No matter when that cup was made, that's an odd trio.
2017. That was a very.
You think Marquise Chris was like, what about me?
Probably.
That's what I'm saying. Because like Marquise, like if it was Marquise Chris, Dragon Bender, and
Sorry,
Devin Booker.
Only number 4 picks allowed. And Devin Booker.
And Devin Booker.
Yeah, that's weird. Dave, I also have a clarification that I wanted to ask you. So I'm gathering all the games I've beaten this year. Does things like Castlevania, like on NES, count? Because it took like 2 hours, but I beat it still.
Have you beaten it previously?
No.
Then yes.
Okay.
Then you're going to
I
get
would say
stomped.
yes.
You're
I'm
about...
not-
Do you know the scene from American History X?
Wow,
That's about to happen to you. And what's perfect is any scene you were thinking of, that's what's going to happen to you.
Shot in the bathroom, stomped on a curb,
Actually, that's
in
really,
the shower.
I should have revised that. I don't want to recall the images of being shot in the bathroom, but everything else is fine.
Man, okay. You know, the first thing to do to get out of a hole is put down the shovel. So, so here's the thing. I know you've got way more games beaten than me this year. It's not a contest, so
It
I don't
is.
know.
It is a
It
contest.
is to one of the two of you.
It is a
Cool.
contest. I just want to point out the fact that this number is going to be
Astronomical.
triple is generous. I think it's going to be more like what's a multiplier of 15?
A quintuple or something like that.
Whatever it is, that's what you're about to face here. I'm going to
Fine,
bring down the wrath of heaven on you right now.
I really have no.
You
like,
won't be
that
able to
doesn't
look
make
your
sense.
son in the eye anymore.
See, here. You want to go in a contest that's completely one-sided?
Yes.
Hey, Shaun, I've got 3 kids. Fuck you. I win the contest.
Damn, he's
Yeah, but
got
that's
you.
not this year. Although I will say this year you are beating me by 1.
Is he?
Children?
Did you? I thought you like recently was James.
2019, end of 2019.
Mhm.
So this year we're actually tied. So that's
Oh,
fine.
okay, that's cool.
Yeah. But total, he has you, like the multiplier doesn't exist.
I
It's
mean, sure.
infinite.
Do you want to go total games? That's gonna
It's the
be like
same
you're
argument,
never
Shaun.
gonna recover, man.
It's the same argument. It's a contest that the other person doesn't care about, so therefore I feel great about myself.
Yeah, well, guess what, Dave? How many Maisies have you married?
Yeah.
Exactly. So, all right, how many Courtneys have you married, Shaun?
Ah,
5?
shit, he's got you there.
You actually don't want to know the answer to that. It might be more than you think.
But less than you'd hope.
Maisie, we need to go talk to her about this. Make sure she knows about your history.
No.
Anyways, my ridiculousness was not actually what we had planned today. We actually have a good show
You
planned.
sure?
I mean, I'm not. I reserve the right to be ridiculous later, but within the confines of what we have planned.
Mm.
I will return the hosting duties back to Chris to
Oh.
intro the segment.
So I just get to introduce things. That's all I'm here for.
You can.
Well,
we have,
among
like,
other duties as the host, you also get to outro things.
Well, that's the end of
Intro
our
and
multiplier discussion.
You get 1 opinion per show, Chris. So you're fine.
Okay. All right,
I
I'll
don't
save
think
it.
you've given it yet, actually. So you're still.
No.
The world is your oyster.
Hmm.
Really.
I'm going to make it count.
Okay.
Choose wisely.
So there's not a lot to introduce, and I don't know why I'm introducing it. It's Dave's idea, but sure. That's fine.
That's a good point, but that's okay.
I'll introduce.
Here we go. Here's the introduction. Ready? Dave was like, let's rank the Pixar movies. And he was like, we should do a whole thing and have a point system. And he told us this 47 seconds before we were going to go on air.
Yeah, so one, I'm like, great, that's no time. Two, I'm like, I guess my homework is just getting fucked, but that's fine. Since when is anything different, right? And I get to play the Martyr, too, which is a third thing that's great. To Dave's credit, he did come in with the hook of Soul was supposed to be released this week, but because COVID, it is not released. It will never be released because movies are never coming out again to theaters. It might come straight to your video though, the Disney Plus or something. So in honor of a movie that was supposed to be released but is not, we're gonna rank all the Pixar movies.
But just okay, it'll lead in. My kids have been watching a lot of Pixar movies lately, and I've kind of seen not all of them again, but I've seen a bunch of them again recently, and I thought about how much I actually like a lot of them. I like most of them are kind of, we were talking Zelda last week, how a bad Zelda game is still better than most good a lot of good games.
Yeah,
Pixar's got a lot of that quality. There are some bad ones. There's a couple of really bad Pixar movies, but for the most part, Pixar movies are very good.
And this is not meant as derision, but when Dave is passionate about something pop culture, I'm kind of like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it, for sure.
We have to. Yeah, we don't want to shun him.
Yeah, what am I going to do? Like, ignore it? And then that's one of like 5 times in history that's come up. No derision meant, no disrespect. So yeah, let's
We're not going to rank them though.
No, I know.
No, I mean ranking all one by that's a lot. But we do have a list pulled up. We're going to go through the list in no particular order, unless is this the list as it was presented on one of the sites, Dave, or is this just a random collection?
Like chronological.
Yeah.
Oh,
looks chronological to me.
Yep. So
had I looked at it more closely, I still probably wouldn't have found it, but that makes sense.
Of course, there are 22 Pixar movies. Soul would be number 23. So to fit within this format, we can speak on each of these for about 90 seconds.
Okay.
Rapid reviews.
That's actually good
Basically.
for you to set.
Except those was 60 seconds for one person. If we have 90 seconds for each movie, that's 30 seconds apiece.
Yeah, well, we're going to spend longer on some movies than others, because there's one I can say sucks and move on. So
if we have 90 seconds, the way that we break it down based on show's history, I will talk for 75 seconds. Dave will talk for 10 seconds. Chris will talk not at all.
Because I'll have to intro the next movie in the last 5 seconds I have.
Yep. One opinion, Chris.
Yeah. You don't want to blow it on talking about one of the 23 movies.
I know. All right. In order, then, that brings us to Toy Story, which is like 96-ish?
1990, Thanksgiving of 1996. I remember seeing it on Thanksgiving Day, 1996.
My hot take is extremely influential. I mean, huge. Obviously, I didn't think it was that great. It's okay.
It's crazy to me how, from what I heard, that story, the whole plot was completely different the first time through, and they were just basically like, look, we made a cartoon on computers, and they're like, yeah, you need a story, and so they actually made, I thought, a pretty good story. But yeah, this one is kind of like the Super Mario Brothers of its time, where it's just breakthrough, like a historic moment, basically.
Yeah, and the plot was not great, but at least it was there. I actually heard Joss Whedon came in as like the fixer and punched it up.
See, I don't know. I like the plot a lot. I like the fact of the world building that comes in it, the kind of the rules that are followed, and then they kind of break the rules a little bit of it. The emotion that's in it too. I don't know. I think the plot was it could be a little simplistic for nowadays, but overall, I thought it was really well done.
One of the things you have to remember is that by 1996 standards, I don't think this plot is as simple as you think it is. No, I'm not saying it's this horribly complex layered thing, but when you think about most of the 90s Disney movies, a lot of which I like, it's not like Beauty and the Beast is exactly that elaborate either, or The Lion King, or, anything, really. I mean, it's fine.
It's okay. It's like middle tier for me. I will say I do love, Pixar does this a lot. It sets the rules and then it like breaks the rules a little bit in its own movie, which like in a good way, which I like. It like Inception does that. Here's the rules. Now we're going to go 6 levels deep. So everything you thought you knew, we're going to turn on its head. Toy Story kind of does this with the finale, and it's pretty good because of it.
Yeah. There's an appropriate amount of suspension of disbelief, because like there's no way a single toy has never been caught by a human one way or another.
Yeah, they're not very careful.
No, it's just like all of a sudden, Andy's about to walk in his room, and all of a sudden, oh my God, Andy's coming, and we have 35 seconds for him to open the door. It's like, really? Huh? Okay.
You actually find out other toy organizations are much more organized. They've been on this case for a long time.
Their master plan is just flop over when somebody comes by.
Yeah.
Hopefully nobody notices we're not in the same spot we were last time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, and that's the problem throughout the series, by the way, as it gets more elaborate and the things they're doing are more adventurous / ridiculous.
Yeah.
That suspension of disbelief becomes more and more difficult.
Yeah.
Especially in 4.
It's got so much heart, though. Like, it's got emotion to it, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So.
All right, we've exceeded Toy Story's time by a 2.5-minute span, so that's going to take away from Finding Nemo. Sorry, Finding Nemo.
You know what? That's great, though, because the next one's A Bug Life. This movie sucks. It's like a weird retelling of, like, Seven Samurai, kind of. And I didn't really enjoy any of it. Like, any of it. I didn't think it was good at all. And this came out around the time of Ants, and Ants also was not very good. So it was not a good time for bugs in movies.
I remember seeing this, and it was okay. It was until recently, like the last 5 years, I'd say it was the worst. It would be for me the worst Pixar movie until the last few years. I'd say there's been a couple duds, I think, in the past few years.
Yeah, this is lower tier.
Yeah, this is absolute like tier. If you got 3 tiers of Pixar movies, this is absolutely tier 3. So it's not. It wasn't. Again, I don't think it was necessarily a bad movie. It was just kind of. I don't know. I don't know how else to say it except for that.
It's very mediocre.
Yeah.
At best. I'm trying to see which one came out first. I know they came out within like a month of each other.
Yeah, I think Ants was a little bit more adult heavy or a little bit more, geared toward adults, while Bug's Life is more kid friendly. So
you talk about suspension of disbelief. There's a part in Ants, which is we're now talking more about Ants than Bug's Life, where they're like fighting the fucking exterminator, and I'm like, this could never have this. Like, and even as a kid, I was like, I can't relate to this. You're not gonna have ants fighting the exterminator. They're ants. This is stupid.
That was one thing that Bug's Life was good for, was they really kept to their own world. They created their world and they stuck in it. There weren't humans coming around messing things up. They had, they did a lot of cutesy things, like, they had their little car was made out of an animal crackers box, or, their carnival was made out of different, like, discarded trash, stuff like that. So, like, they did cutesy little stuff like that, which was okay. But again, it was just mediocre.
Ants was October 2nd, 1998. Bug's Life was November 15th, 1998, and you can't help but wonder,
it's so weird,
what happened at these studios where they were like, yeah, this is fine. We'll just release these within 6 weeks of each other. And you imagine Ants had that date first, but who the hell knows? Disney nowadays goes like 6 years in advance, but even back then they were pretty aggressive about carving out, especially holiday dates. So I don't even know. I don't care to dig enough into the research for it, but it's just a bad look having 2 mediocre movies about bugs within 6 weeks of each other, both animated.
Yeah, let's not even get started on like A Bee Story or whatever the fuck that movie was.
Which is so terrible.
So bad. Everybody's
like
actually, I think it was pretty clever, and I'm like, no, that's because you're dumb.
They probably also
you want to suspend your disbelief. That's the one.
They probably also enjoyed Boss Baby, unironically.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you?
I actually thought it was a really interesting critique on modern day corporate America.
And at that, Alec Baldwin.
The Boss Baby was inside us all along. Toy Story 2.
Love it.
The best Toy Story movie that came out when it was 2 Toy Stories.
Disagree. It's not the best Toy Story movie.
Well, he didn't finish the sentence, but he did structure the sentence in a way that was going to be inflammatory. So,
yeah, no, I mean, so to say it was the best Toy Story when it was released is kind of an understatement, because I felt like the first one, while good, the second one is like excellent. It takes the story in really creative new directions. It plays on so much of what was established in the first one, which I will give credit to, but like I feel like it took all the ideas and kind of maxed them out. And all the stuff with the father and the alien guy, that was my favorite stuff. It was very good.
Wait, you mean the father where Emperor Zurg was Buzz Lightyear's father?
Yeah.
You mean that stupid reductive Star Wars ripoff?
Yeah, exactly.
It
was until the end when he was like, "Go catch, son!" He throws the frisbee.
It's weird how much Pixar gets away with that.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, there's nothing to that side story at all. It is just a blatant Star Wars ripoff. Just like a lot of things in Onward are just blatant pop culture ripoffs. Indiana Jones is in there. There's a huge Lord of the Rings reference in there. It's just like, what? We're playing all the hits, I guess? There's a Weekend at Bernie's reference in Onward. That's a movie from the 80s.
You could, of course there is.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Sorry. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because you could try to give them credit of they're actually pointing out how kind of stupid this idea in Star Wars was to begin with, but I don't know if I'm ready to give them that much credit, so we'll just leave it at that.
I also don't know if we get to call that stupid. That's one of the most important moments in cinema history.
No, but like I don't know. It's totally.
We're not talking about Star Wars.
Now, maybe they didn't plan that from the original one. Like, was when New Hope was out, was that a thing? Probably not. So, how much credit did they get? Whatever.
That's what I'm saying. They just decided.
Toy Story 2, good new additions. Like Jesse quite a bit. Strangely enough, it's the movie where Buzz has the most to do, even though it has an entire Woody cowboy side story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting that they basically said Buzz not thinking he's a space ranger isn't interesting enough, so we need 5,000 Buzzes on a wall, basically.
Yeah.
That was fine, though, because that gave us this Buzz who's learned a lot along the way, and against all these other Buzzes who are clearly like just clueless out of the box. Instead, now 3 and 4 have both been kind of like, all right, now we need to find ways to make him like the old Buzz again, especially 3. Mm-hmm. Probably my least favorite part of 3, which we will also get to, obviously, where it's just like, all right, Buzz is switch flipped. Cool. I'm really excited for 20 minutes of this subplot. We'll get there.
I love the world building, though, in 2 of how Kelsey Grammer's character, the Stinky Peter, I think his character's name was, never left the box, so he never got played by a kid, so he didn't have that attachment, he didn't have that pull, and so I loved how they played into that so hard. They
always have like some pretty realistic villains, don't they? And like pretty much the whole series.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Sid is like a caricature, but then again, like he's like painted as this evil kid, and it's like he's playing with toys. Like really, he's not that bad of a kid. It's.
You know, how many kids that would rip a head off a toy because, like, it's just like, oh, let's see what happens. Let's blow this thing up because I like explosions.
Yeah.
Like, there were kids. Almost everybody knew a kid like that. When they were
sure, it's cruel if you know they're alive, but Sid didn't. So what was the problem? Anyways,
Monsters Inc.
Lower
love
tier.
this movie.
Oh wow. Well, there you go.
All right, moving on now.
Because it was so wholly unique in this whole world of like, look, we've got this entire society that's run on a unique thing, and this is why monsters scare you and why they come out of the closet. It was completely like unbelievable in a sense, but I love the world they built there.
I can't even articulate to you what I did not find engaging about this movie, but because you're right, like it is a unique setup. It's very original. Like the doors are portals. Like someone was very creative when they thought of this movie. Truly,
AKA very on drugs when they thought of this.
Yeah. Could have been. And I just like was watching and like I should be excited. This happens every once in a while. I should be interested. I'm not. I'm bored. Scepter. Thank you. Spectre.
I always call
we don't
it
even
Scepter.
remember the fucking name because it sucked.
The P and the C.
That was another one. It's like, wow, there's a lot of action happening. I wish I cared about any of it.
Oh no, who's this bad guy? I'm bored anyways. Doesn't matter.
Matrix Revolutions was like that. It's like, oh cool, look at all this action.
Yeah. So I guess for Monsters Inc., it just didn't resonate with me. I don't know if it was because it was a very creative thing that they wanted to ground with a pretty straightforward plot. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm not saying it was the movie's fault necessarily. I just didn't think it was that great.
It really didn't resonate with me either. So unfortunately, that's been it's not my bottom, but it's in the bottom half.
I don't know. Maybe I just had a connection to the characters of the, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I saw myself in Mike Wazowski a little bit of the, guy who wanted to do something so badly and just didn't have the physical gifts to do it type of thing. That's a little bit more in Monsters University, and we'll get to that. But
you have all the physical gifts, so why did you relate to him?
Not to play in the NBA.
Well, okay. Yeah. It depends where you're setting the barometer, I guess.
Finding Nemo.
Yeah. I loved it. The upper tier for me, for sure.
Top 2 for me? Yeah.
Did Finding Nemo came out before The Incredibles, right?
Yeah.
If this list is right.
Because chronological, right?
Yeah.
this is the first Pixar movie that I saw in theaters or at all and was like, this is an excellent, excellent film. And I was like riveted. This was the first one, and I loved all this fish stuff. I thought the visuals were great. Taking us under the ocean was very cool. There were a lot of unique set pieces that moved you along the plot, both on the father side and the Nemo side. I thought it was great, and it was very funny too. I mean, the Dory shtick gets old, but when you're watching it for the first time, it's pretty entertaining.
The Dory shtick gets old is going to come back later.
God, the one line where Marlin says, "I'm swimming around with a fish who can't remember her own name," and Dory goes, "Boy, I bet that's frustrating." It just gets me every time.
Yeah, some really good throwaway lines in that movie. This is the one on the list for me where this is a beloved film and it's like barely above average to me.
Yeah, I thought I remember that.
I don't know what it is about this one. It's just like Monsters Inc. for you. For me, here is like I can recognize this is just a very well-made movie and has a lot of funny beats and a lot of heartwarming moments. And like for some reason, it's just not something that I enjoy that much.
It's that you can feel, and it's partially, Albert Brooks is a good actor, but like you can just feel the tension, the desperation in Marlin's quest the whole time. And I don't know, there's something about that that's so endearing, and it just feels so good when they get reunited. And then he trusts Nemo to help other fish because he's learned something along the way. There's just a really good character arc, I think, in that gets utterly destroyed in Finding Dory, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I really like this movie. This might be my number 2 or 3 Pixar movie, so it's way up there. Same problem with the suspension of disbelief. No fish has ever come close to attempting any of the shit in the tank. It bothers me, but it's okay.
Also, do you know how big a clownfish is?
No.
Fucking tiny, like this big. The idea of it swimming from a coral reef to, even the Great Barrier Reef to Sydney is like, no, never gonna happen, buddy.
But he has a big heart.
Yeah, he's finding his son, Dave.
He'll do anything, even grow 6 times the rest of his species.
Don't worry, it gets even worse than Finding Dory. So
yes, The Incredibles. Sean's number 1.
This is the number 1.
It's not number 1.
It's the number 1, and it's not that close. The plot is great. The thematic genre breakdown is great, and that's what I love about some of the Pixar movies. Like, it is a homage / critique of the genre itself, while also just delivering great action, great animation, excellent plot, great characters, unique powers. Like, it's everything. They managed to do like spy and superhero genre in the same thing. Excellent. It's a shame about the sequel, but man, this original was so good.
I'm sensing a trend here when we start talking about sequels, unless it's the Toy Story sequel.
Yeah.
God, this is one where it's a little bit like you guys with Monsters Inc. and Finding Nemo. I really like this movie. I think it's visually awesome. The characters are relatable. It's funny in a lot of parts. Jason Lee as Syndrome is fantastic, and yet it's right just inside the top 10 for me.
Interesting though that each of us has a movie that's well regarded, and we're all kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I like it. Like, don't get me wrong, I really like this movie, and there's a lot of great things about it. There's just other movies that are higher.
It speaks to maybe the high level of quality across the board, too. I mean, it's not like we're ranking the difference between a 95% on a Rotten Tomatoes and a 20. It's like a 95, and this one's a 94, and this one's an 88, and this one, so it's like, true. Okay, well, we're not moving it too much when we re-rank these.
Yeah, this is almost one of those depends on the day and maybe how recently I've seen it that can really affect where I might put it in there. But I don't know. I definitely like this a lot. I've just never been that big into a superhero genre, and that may play into it a little bit.
Best Pixar soundtrack. Cars.
Oh yeah. Wait, Chris, you didn't say The Incredibles. Did
I'm
you
saving
love
my
it?
opinion.
Oh.
I only get one.
Okay. Cars. Okay. Cars is notable for the first movie that I can remember that actually made me like tear up.
Really?
Which is a very strange trivia for whenever we become millionaires, and this is on Jeopardy because we're celebrities. Yeah, no other movie. And it so dumb. I think it was just It hit me at that time of my life when this was going to start happening, and to just beat other things to it. But when that the little car, the little thing that changes tires really fast, changed the tires really fast at the finale, and everybody was like, "Oh, what a stupid thing!" And he changed them all really fast. I was like, that's so cool. And I get the same thing now when I'm watching like anime or a movie where like a character does something really awesome and maybe goes beyond your expectations. You're like, this is so cool. I'm so happy. And I like get a little emotional. This was the first one to do it for me.
That happens a lot in Haikyuu for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it happened to me in that one too.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I'm also a sucker for all the real life ones too. I mean, it's different in a way, but like anytime somebody shows emotion in real life, like unexpected emotion, or like you said, exceeding expectations, is what also gets me. It's why I like those game shows with big prizes, like life-changing money, because when people win it, you're like, oh my God, they're going to be so happy now. And you're like, well, actually, it's just money, and I'm sure it'll help, don't get me wrong, but...
Man, the first time I ever seen parts of this movie, I hated it. And then I watched the whole movie, and I freaking loved it.
Yeah, as bad as the sequels get, this one is actually pretty good.
It's almost a shame. I think people have now sort of downgraded the first movie because of 2 and 3. When the first one's actually quite good.
So here's the thing I've realized is that the character arc of Lightning McQueen is predictable but really good. Like, he's a jerk. He's a flat-out asshole in the beginning. And he learns that people that are different than him or maybe have a simpler life aren't bad. And it's something that I think a lot of people can take from that movie, of the sense of like, just because you've got this life that you think is fantastic over here doesn't mean that people that live their life differently are bad or wrong in any way. So I like that lesson that's learned. I think it's important even today, really, for how a lot of people judge other people they don't know.
Well, and I'll even say that, like, it is predictable, definitely, but like, he maintains his assholeness so long that I was afraid he was going to reform, but like a little bit. And he ends up getting there, and he's a great guy at the end. But like, there's a while when I was like, am I actually going to like him? Like, even if he changes, it's starting to seem like it's not going to be a lot, and I'm going to have an issue. And then like it is. So I liked that part of it too.
And then in that movie, they had just the right amount of Mater.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, because he's good in very small doses. Larry the Cable Guy, the Hick type of character, is fine in very small doses or heartfelt moments. And then the second movie happened, and move on.
It's sort of like the Dory conundrum all over again.
It really is. It's like, hey, we've got this really fun character that's good for moments and gags. Oh, we want to make an entire movie about them? Uh-oh.
Oh dear. They were best as part of an ensemble. They definitely don't need a spotlight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It'd be like if they made an entire Avatar show about Sokka.
Wait, but that's no, because I love Sokka.
No, you wouldn't love him if they made an entire show about him. He would be
Why
very
are you
grating.
doing? Why are you being so stupid? Still Sokka.
All right, so Ratatouille. So for me, this is my underachiever, as in it's. I think it's better than people give it credit for. I think it's the second most high concept Pixar movie behind only Inside Out, which is so abstract as to be sort of ludicrous in a way. It's a mouse, and he pulls the guy's hair, and he cooks dishes, and it's important to win this really mean reviewer's opinion because he's jackass, but it reminds him of his youth, so he loves it now. Like, what? What did I just watch?
But I fucking love this movie so much. I don't know why. I love it.
It's weird. This is more middle tier for me because I remember watching it and I enjoyed it quite a bit. And like, I left the theater and I never really thought about it again. And I don't know why that is. It was just like enjoyable in the moment, but didn't leave me alone. Maybe it's because it is relatively, I mean, compared to the next movie we're going to get to, Wall-E, relatively low stakes, like you pointed out. But I mean, it's done really well. It's very unique. There's a couple different little subplots that really do pay off. It just didn't leave a lasting impression. I don't know why.
I think this one left such a lasting impression because I remember seeing the previews for it and thinking like, oh God, they've finally done it. They went off the deep end. Every other movie so far has been pretty good and I've liked it. Every Pixar movie so far is good. Now that a rat cooks with the guy, and like, I didn't even want to see it. And then I watched it and I'm like, damn it, they did it again. This is really good. So like I almost like it more because I had such low expectations going in.
I feel like Dave just personally attacked me because I said it did not leave a lasting impression. His next line was, I think it left such a lasting impression because...
Just sweep that under the rug.
I'm offended.
For me, it's just how it was for me. I mean, it's circumstantial, but it's just how it was for me.
It's funny that it's so good, and when we talk about suspension of disbelief, out of all the things that have happened so far, a rat controlling someone by pulling their hair is by far the most egregious, like, offender.
Yeah, and if your motor functions can be controlled that way, you have a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I got a work call. I skipped it. It's why it's the video jump. Don't be distracted. It's fine. We're going to keep going. Wally.
So you guys all have examples of ones where like it's a really good movie that didn't resonate with you. I feel like Wally is a not very good movie that really resonated with me.
Bingo. I agree wholeheartedly.
But if you agree and Chris agrees, then maybe it was just a good movie that we all think was a good movie.
I think it is a good movie, and I have no desire to watch it again in my life.
That's interesting. I feel that way about Ratatouille. I would watch Wally again, though. But not a lot. Maybe like one more time.
I almost feel like I need to watch Wally again to understand it more, almost, because I feel like it seems like it's almost easy to miss things, despite the fact there's almost no dialogue in the entire movie. I don't think there is any dialogue. There's some talking, but almost no dialogue whatsoever.
And I think it's the no dialogue. It does give it a very simplistic. I keep talking about this. Like the plot is like, what I mean is the interactions and the way the plot progresses. It's very, very simple. The villain is pretty one note. It is pretty on the nose with all of its like. When I hear reviews of Wally, they're like, "What a good movie for like being socially whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's very obvious though. Like the point it's making, like you could not be any more obvious." Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much credit I give it. I really enjoyed the character of Wally and Eva. Eva? Mm-hmm. Eva, not Eva.
Eva.
Honestly, all the other shit could have kind of gone away other than the fact that it gave it some stakes. But just that core dynamic was enough for me to enjoy that movie.
Yeah, I agree. What kind of sparked me wanted to look at a list of Pixar is because the other day my kids were watching Onward, and it made me think of, here's a list of Pixar movies. I need to go see what people rank them. And I pulled up the first list that came up on Google, and this was the #1 movie on Vulture.com. And I'm like, come on. This is good, but best Pixar movie? Come on. No, that's wrong. And so then I had to take this into my own hands.
Because, again, it's too obvious to possibly be the #1 movie. Like, everyone's skeletons or jelly because they're fat. And it's like, okay, that's fine. That's fine, but it's a little on the nose.
The visual aspect of it is really, like, that's what Pixar does so well, is, like, wows you with things on the screen. Just, like, they come in, Wally picking up a little piece of trash, and they zoom out, and, oh, my God, there's trash, like, buildings, skyscrapers of trash type of thing. They do such a good job of building these visually stunning worlds, and then making really relatable characters, and that's what Wally is, for sure. He's a little tiny robot that picks up trash, and I freaking love the guy.
It reminds me of the original Pixar things that you see with the lamp, which, by the way, wasn't the lamp on like Sesame Street like 30 years ago? I swear to God, I remember seeing shorts of the lamp before Pixar released like Toy Story. There was the lamp doing stuff, and he was a character. And I want to say it was Sesame Street, but maybe it wasn't.
You got a Mandela effect going on right now.
No. I'm gonna find this, but anyways, it's what they did so well with that original character. No dialogue, no nothing. Everything that they characterize of him is through the motion and the eyes and the physical acting, and it's like wonderful.
It's sort of stunning, though, isn't it? That when you look back at the original Toy Story from 1996, I mean, is it a little bit dated now? Sure, especially compared to subsequent Toy Stories, but that movie still looks good.
Mm-hmm.
From 1996.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and what sucks is I remember a study saying average moviegoers consumers cannot tell the difference between like, I don't know what it was. It was like PlayStation 3 like in movie graphics and Toy Story. And they were like, that's so disheartening because they're absolutely on completely different levels. like huge gaps in memory, and most people can't even tell the difference.
That's stupid. Like, how can you, like, oh God, okay.
I mean, I know, but
don't get me started. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there goes that rabbit hole.
yeah.
All right. This one I think is going to be controversial. Up.
Is it going to be controversial?
It is with me.
It is.
Did you not like Up?
I don't like everything except the first 10 minutes of Up.
Bingo.
The
first
first-
10 minutes Up is maybe number 1 on this list.
Yep, exactly correct. The first 10 minutes are among the most heart-wrenching, poignant pieces of media I've ever seen. It's exquisitely done. And the rest of it is very C+.
No, the rest of it's really good. There is some that is like, okay, a little too much into the dog thing. They're like, it would be really funny if dogs could talk. Let's make that the entire B plot, which I didn't love.
That was
But
actually kind of the A plot almost.
yeah,
It
right.
kind of is.
Yeah,
which is part of my problem.
But the old man and the kid, because I remember being moved later on in the movie too with that dynamic of their whole relationship. So I thought that was really good too. The villain, again, maybe Pixar just kind of struggles with. Well, actually, we talked about how a lot of their villains are good, but sometimes they just seem to kind of miss the mark completely. And I feel like Up is one of the examples. But I thought it did enough well. Besides that it still was very good. Upper tier for me, not maybe in the top 4 or 5, but like very close.
Upper tier.
That's
Come on,
not to throw shade.
That's not even fair.
To call the rest of the movie a C+ is not to be like, it sucks. It's fine / maybe good. But when I hear about like Up as people's number 1, I'm like, if you really enjoyed the first 10 minutes, I completely understand where you're coming from. If it's your number 1 because you enjoy the whole thing top to bottom, I don't get it. Like, yeah, the dog is talking now. It's hilarious. It definitely doesn't get run into the ground.
It's got funny parts. I like the idea that that the old man sends the kid on a snipe hunt and they find a snipe. Like it actually makes me laugh, like the joke of it. But then again, that stupid bird was really annoying the entire movie, and the dogs were really annoying, and the villain had no motivation as far as I could tell.
And
so
if we're talking about suspending disbelief, this movie might be the worst. It has just the one major premise. And once you accept that and you just kind of go along for the ride, that's fine. But when we think about it, it also, because it is the biggest of sorts, might also be the largest to disbelieve.
I mean, the amount of balloons that he has to lift his house off is unbelievable. He'd still need more balloons to actually lift his house up off the ground.
Probably like 50 times as many.
I do have an update. Yeah, you're right, but that's cute. Again, every Pixar movie has a suspension of disbelief. I'm okay with that
That's
one.
fine too. I don't hold that against them.
It's almost so fantastical that it's like magical realism, where you're like, "There's no way."
Yeah, it's kind of like a Roald Dahl concept.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
exactly.
It's so silly that you're like, all right, yeah, okay.
I do have an update, which kind of proves both of us wrong and right. So that's always the best when that happens. The lamp was a short that was introduced in 1986, preceding everything. So I don't know where I saw it, but I definitely saw this fucking lamp. And then later it was in like Toy Story. And I was like, I know that thing. But I
just wasn't Sesame Street.
But you don't know. Maybe maybe Sesame Street showed this video because it won a bunch of awards.
No.
You don't know. You've never seen every episode of Sesame Street.
I've heard about the lamp. It was a short video that basically the guys who kind of started, John Lasseter, Brad Bird, like those guys that were really heavily involved in Pixar, made as college students basically, and that's why they use it, and that's why.
Well, yeah, but you don't know the Sesame. It wasn't on Sesame Street. Dave's like, I've seen every episode of Sesame Street, and it was never on there.
Until you've watched every episode of Sesame Street, of which there are thousands, you can't possibly say. And even when you have, he'll just say you forgot.
Dave, get back to me when you've watched every episode, okay? And then we'll have this conversation.
Shaun would be the best at conspiracy theories. I could prove him utterly wrong, and he'd be like, no, you're wrong.
I love how
I'm right.
Like Sean's homework assignments have gotten more reasonable over time, and this is not one of them.
No.
Yeah, thank God I'm not like you guys. I really think the Earth is flat. Because
look at how the airplane would have to turn.
Yeah, I would go for hours not listening to you. Luckily, I'm not an idiot, so it's fine.
I'm glad the flat Earth stuff wasn't in the public eye back when you were the most contrarian.
What do you mean?
Because you would have gone on about it for like 9 hours and it would have been exhausting.
Well, I see what you're saying. Okay. I see. I thought you were saying there was a time when I did believe it was
No,
flat.
it's just there was a time when you argued the opposite side of every point back in like the episode 20 to episode 150 range.
Yeah,
where it
that's true.
Where that one in particular, I would have been like, we're not doing this.
I'm thinking
We're
to
not
myself,
doing
I'm
this.
thinking to myself, wow, this really hurts to argue, but I have to. So here we go. Okay.
If the world's curved, how come my shoes don't have curves?
Exactly.
Last one for this part. We decided in the little break that you didn't even witness that we were going to cut this in half because it's clear we're going way too long even at our quick pace. And we end on a good one. Toy Story 3.
It's number 1.
This is probably my number 2, honestly. And I love Toy Story 4 a lot. But like Toy Story 3 is, other than The Incredibles, it's like a perfect movie. It's like a perfect movie.
Except the Buzz subplot.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's really the only major fault I have with it. I love Toy Story 3. It's probably my number 3. It's just really, really good. And again, we talked about the incinerator probably on like half dozen episodes at this point. Like just phenomenal. Like the tension was very real there, which I wasn't expecting because it's like, oh, they're not going to do this. And as that scene goes on, you're like, but
they're going to cut away, right? Like they're not going to actually show them melting. They're
Right.
probably they're holding hands and they're going to cut away.
and even if they don't cut away, this is still pretty dark for a children's movie / series.
No, really, the fact that they held hands and looked at each other with those looks are like, holy shit. Like,
Yeah.
you have, like, you know in the back of your mind they're not going to let this happen. But you have that moment where you're like, oh, God. Oh,
which
man.
is
I
all
think-
you can ask for.
Yes.
I like that they've covered his mouth too. I think that really sold it.
This is
Oh dear.
oh my. This is very similar to a concept in wrestling called a false fall, which is basically like a near count where you're like, oh, they're not going to, this is over. And then somebody kicks out and everybody goes, oh, shit. There are some times where it's so obvious, where it's like, there's no way it's going to happen. But the really good storytellers will get you sucked in for just that little bit of a moment. All it takes is that hesitation. Toy Story 3 had the hesitation where you're like, are they actually going to have all of these characters go into this fucking furnace? Just that little hesitation, which
Yeah.
because it couldn't be more than that. You knew,
No.
like you said in the back of your head, this is not going to happen. We're not going to watch Woody burst into flames in a theater full of children. But for that split second,
He's just screaming. as he
Tom
catches-
Hanks' most poignant performance.
So you do bring up a good point though, and it's a concern of mine. It's because you kind of brought in the bus subplot is not good. The ending is great. Do I have a higher ranking for Toy Story 3 just because the ending is so good? Among the best endings for like a trilogy or a movie that I've ever seen.
Yep.
Do you think that I'm weighing it too good just because of that ending? And maybe the rest of the movie is like, it's okay, it's pretty good, but the ending is extraordinary.
Lotso's a great villain. Lotso is a fantastic villain to me. He's got depth of history. He's got deception. He's got all-out evilness. Desperate. He's got so much depth to him. I love Lotso as a villain. So I think the movie itself is a range of emotion of the toys feeling the pain of someone moving on without you, then trying to find something else to fill it, and then not being able to, and then actually finding a sense of closure in the end. I love that arc.
To your point, isn't that such a, like, people always say like it's good for adults and for kids, and it's like you throw one adult joke in, it's like it's good for adults. This is one where it's like as adults we really can resonate at like the idea of moving on, things changing, and having that nostalgia and memories of the past resonates with you in a really real way. But then like as kids you get to have fun with toys on the screen. And it's like the epitome of that.
To your point, I'll go ahead and tip my hand with my one opinion for the episode. We have not mentioned my number one movie yet. It's 4, which surprises me. But as I quickly put these together in my head, I realized it's sort of like an extension of the ending of 3, because those themes are still prevalent throughout 4, where it's like adapting and moving on, and how do you adjust, and where do you find your new happiness, except it's the whole movie.
Yeah, I was going to say 4, and we'll get to that, but like 4 is the application of the sensation that was realized at the end of 3.
Now,
it's like,
3,
oh yeah, now you do have to move on, and then there's a movie exploring that.
3's more concentrated burst hits harder and is probably better as a whole. But 4 just kind of extends that feeling. So people who didn't give 4 a shot because they thought 3 was a perfect ending, I think were shooting themselves in the foot because it's more of what they liked so much about 3.
Yeah.
Now, is it as good? That's completely subjective, and I don't mind people who like 3 more than 4 at all. But for me, I've realized that that's my number 1, which surprises me a lot.
So Shaun mentioned earlier about the first time he felt tears in the theater. The ending, when he's handing over, talking all about all the toys and handing them over to Bonnie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he has that moment where he holds Woody back, like, I'm not giving him to you. No, you need it more than me. Fucking waterworks, man. That is such a moving scene. Like,
Yeah.
the passing on, the love he feels, the passing on of the toys to the next generation. Oh, God, it's so good.
That is
It's so
Pixar
good.
at its best for a couple of reasons. One is the subtlety of it because it's him reverting to the 5-year-old version of himself from the first movie, just for that split second of like, this is mine. I can't. Oh wait, no, things have changed. I have to pass this on, etc. A lot of Pixar movies do a very good job of having a good blend of humor and then those hard-hitting moments that really resonate with you, and putting them in both in the movie in a way that makes like total sense.
And that's like Bug's Life. You're like, wow, bugs really have it tough. And it's like, who gives a shit? This, that perfectly encapsulates that. It's like such a real thing that one of those writers, like, they have personally experienced that, at least one, if not more. And like, you know that because they hit on that so perfectly. They've captured that emotion, and you feel it. And yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
look,
then they get to go play. Like, the toys get to go play with Andy one last time,
Yeah.
and then play with the new girl that they're gonna love. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the last 25 minutes of that movie are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And look back at the list of the first half. We'll do the second half in 2 weeks because we're off next week for the 4th of July. But look back at the first half and think about all those movies. Now, we made fun of A Bug's Life. I would argue that there isn't really that heart-wrenching moment in Ratatouille. There's a couple tearjerker, maybe, but not really. But look at the other ones on that list. Is there another one on the list that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 of those moments? Because we've mentioned almost all of those already.
Yeah.
Like Toy Story 2, definitely. Finding Nemo, absolutely. Incredibles, yeah, a couple different points. Wall-E kind of gets to you in a certain way. Up, absolutely. Like, damn.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hallmark of their success, and it's why it's going to be such a bummer when we go through the second half of the list, because I'm looking at that half, and I see, like, 2.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one big one, though.
And
There's
we'll
one
get
really big
there.
one.
And yeah. Yeah, well, it just it bums me out when people are like, I don't watch cartoons, those are for kids. And it's like, you're really missing out on a lot of good stuff. But with that mentality, probably if that's your mentality, probably in life in general, you're probably missing out. But specifically with these animated movies, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going. There's no reason it'll stop. Even in the pandemic, it's the one thing we might see more of going forward, because you can do this remotely in a way you can't with live action.
Yeah, right.
And we're in kind of I don't know, the 3rd or 4th renaissance of animated movies right now. There's a lot of quality stuff out there. DreamWorks stepped up its game considerably, especially starting with How to Train Your Dragon.
Yep.
That whole series has been pretty solid. I think the first one's still the best, kind of like here, but still.
Yeah, for sure.
All 3 movies are pretty good. And you have Disney, who has stepped up its game quite a bit with, Tangled, Frozen. Now, granted, part of that's because they absorbed Pixar, but still, they're doing solid work. There's a lot of really good options out there. So if you're just dismissing the entire genre, I'm sorry your childhood sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you saw the Robinsons and you were, I mean, I have extra hatred for that movie just because of my relation with Dave. But that was a bad movie. And if you saw Meet the Robinsons and you then did not even bother with Tangled and all the other good stuff, like that's too bad.
Yeah.
How did you hate Meet the Robinsons?
I really sincerely did not like it.
It's not a fantastic movie,
I was
but
gonna say,
it's good.
It's
Yeah, I would
thoroughly mediocre.
I would agree with that. It's not a fantastic movie. In fact, it is utter shit.
It is fun.
Come on.
I like it.
Meet the Robinsons is better than Brother Bear.
Okay, I mean, sure. But like,
That's
I
the
haven't
one
seen
where
that.
if they saw that, it's like, all right, I understand. If that was your first and you were like, I'm done, I understand.
yeah.
All right, next week, well, 2 weeks, as I mentioned, 2 weeks out, we will finish the second half, the more recent Pixar releases, talk about those, and then give, I think, our top 5s or so overall. We've kind of talked about a couple of specific positions, but we'll just kind of give our best and maybe our bottom 3 or
I
something.
like that.
Because the middle, who cares about ranking? Like, Monsters University is my 15th best Pixar movie. I don't give a fuck. Top 5, bottom 3. That's how we're going to do it.
I like that.
That's the end of the episode. We'll see you in 2 weeks after the 4th of July. Hopefully you can enjoy the holiday somewhat with whatever the hell your situation is. And we'll see you then. Until then, bottom of the screen, youtube.com/Objection Network, objectionnetwork.com. See you next time.